I'm an alcoholic. So you're in. So basically you get accepted in. It takes like a year and a half. Now you're in and you're getting clearances. And I'm really curious about clearances. Like I know a few people, like I have family that's military. I have family that's involved in, weapon systems and things like that. So I'm curious, what are those like clearance levels and how high did your clearances go?
Great question.
And how do you get them?
Great question, because it's also relevant to current events, because Donald Trump seems to have taken a whole bunch of classified documents, and people back to Mar-a-Lago and people are wondering.
And he was trying to like take away John Brennan's clearances. Like there's a bunch of clearance issues that are related to it.
So ultimately, there's several levels of classification. It goes confidential, secret, and top secret. And within top secret, then there's compartments. But a great way to describe it, and I'm stealing this from a really wonderful national security lawyer named Mark Zaid, who's a friend of mine and actually was my attorney as I was kind of battling for healthcare. But he says it's like walking into a house. So you walk in the house, you walk in the front door. When you open up that front door, that's classified. I'm sorry, that's confidential.
Got it.
Meaning it's if that's compromised, it's damaging to the U.S. government. But that's not the highest level. And then you go down one level, to the basement, and that's at the secret level. And you're like, okay, this is more serious. And if this is and it's harder to get in that next door. But then the basement, then there's a back room in the basement, and that's at the top secret level, and that's another key to get into. So that's really if that material is compromised, it's extremely damaging in the United States. And within that top secret room, there's a safe, and in that safe is compartmented information, which has to do with perhaps signals intelligence collection systems or human intelligence, our sources, our agents.
Right.
And so that's the kind of different level.
And then you check the history tab on my computer. And then that's another level, the most secret.
Absolutely.
No one can see that.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
So
okay.
So ultimately, when I had the highest level of clearances,
you got compartmentalized top secret.
Absolutely, because I was handling again what's our most precious commodity, which is our human agents. And again, it's that the idea of recruiting someone to spy for us. I mean, I almost call it a romance sometimes, but it's a personal relationship. So think about this. I'm asking you to betray your country. In some cases, the sanction for that is pretty severe. And I love to tell a story. And this was, amazingly enough, as I wrote my book, the CIA, I had to put it through kind of a publication review process. So they cleared this story. They cleared the whole book.
And before you do that, could you just like paint the picture? So like we're in Iraq or in Afghanistan. You go there as a CIA operative.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a difference between an operative and an agent. Could you explain that?
Okay, definitely. So I was an operations officer, and so my job was to handle agents. An agent is a foreigner, and so that's what people get. People say you're a CIA agent. I'm like, oh, that hurts me. That's just like absolutely
right.
I can't say that. An agent is a foreigner that we recruit. It's someone who works for us. So it's something totally different. Now, people get it confused because FBI agents are Americans. That is a law enforcement.
I see.
But a CIA agent is not American
by definition.
By definition, someone we recruit, a foreigner.
Got it.
But that relationship between an operations officer and the agent, I tell the story. I was actually in Europe, and I was training someone we had recruited. He was an Arab diplomat. He was going back into his country, which had a huge counterintelligence threat, meaning, and they were enemies of the United States. So if he was caught, it was really serious. So as I'm training him on what we call tradecraft, how we're going to meet on the streets, special communications methods, or maybe we'd be in full disguise, or we run this 3 or 4 hour what we call surveillance detection route, taking turns looking behind us essentially to see if anyone's following us. But he said to me, he goes, Mark, I understand that we're going to meet once a month. That was our meeting cycle. And he said, and so I'm going to, so you're going to think about me, probably once or twice a month. But he said, I'm going to think about you every single day, because if you make one mistake and you're caught and I'm caught, I'm not only going to get killed, but my whole family, my tribe is going to get killed. So he said, you can never make a mistake. You have to be perfect. And to me, that was extraordinary, because that was the essence of my job. I had someone else's life in my hands. That was the responsibility.
How old are you at that point when he tells you that?
Right. So that happened in 2002.
Gotcha.
So I'm 53 now.
I'm not going to do that math.
Right. You're
like early 30s.
Late 20s, early 30s. And so all of a sudden you have someone's life in your hands, and there's not that many jobs where you actually have that responsibility. It's pretty incredible. And you got to take that, damn seriously.
And it's not someone's life, like a surgeon has someone's life in their hands. But this is, not someone, sort of like going under and not coming back. This is someone that could get tortured
Right.
for days, weeks on end until they die like a slow, grueling death.
That's right.
This is like really, really heavy.
I always called it, and so think about the psychology of actually, handling. So we call it handling them. So for 2 or 3 years, that's the person I will meet maybe once or twice a month on the streets of XYZ capital. But the psychology of that relationship is extraordinary.
Right.
And
so
the bond you make is unbelievable. Like, I would call it like it's not a Psych 101 class. It's a Psych 501
yeah, it's
class.
insane. I mean, I'm married. I love my wife very much, but like our relationship has never really been life or death. I don't know if I've ever had a life or death relationship.
It's weird.
It's very strange. And so I'm curious, like, okay, there's like little pieces of that I don't understand. So first off, as a CIA operative, how do you get to another country? Like
jump on an airplane. I know. So I mean,
do you take like a Lufthansa flight?
Yeah, sure.
Like, and are you going with like a CIA passport?
No, I have to be careful on how I say this, but there are a lot of times I'm there. Obviously, it's not advertised that I was a CIA officer. I have something. I am being covered by another element of the United States government, so I'm acting as something else.
I see. With your actual passport.
Yeah, with the diplomatic passport, and I'm a member of the staff at a U.S. installation overseas. And so the idea is that the country doesn't know who you are. Now, sometimes, when you get more senior, you'd be the official, representative overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we call, you're a chief of station or a deputy chief of station or a chief of a base, meaning that you would actually, not be doing that kind of secret stuff. You actually are having
you declare your presence
with that host country.
Got it.
Because we have bilateral relationships in the intelligence world.
Sure.
But the majority, or like frankly the most fun part of your career is when you're what you call a unilateral operations officer. So you're on the street.
Yeah, this is just so crazy. So you're 20 years old.
And you can't tell anybody.
You're at your house. All of a sudden, you get like a briefing through like an email or a letter or something, and they're like, "Hey, you have to do this thing."
It wouldn't be it would be more of just back of the office. But yeah, so you have your kind of operational.
Like an owl comes in with like a note or something. Like it's like Harry Potter to me. I don't even understand. So like, okay, so you go into the office. They're like, "Hey, Mark, this is what you're doing." You're
Or
like,
we have a scheduled meeting cycle. So we're going to meet. I know I have to meet this agent of ours on the street.
But this is in the U.S. though. I mean, so
no,
it's
not in the. But I'm overseas.
But I'm saying you're in the U.S. and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm gonna go. I have to now go to
XYZ
Kabul
country.
or whatever.
Yep, right.
So then you get on a flight.
Yeah.
And you just fly over to the regular airport and you go to the customs and they're like, why are you here? And you're like, I'm here because of cover.
I'm here because I'm, a member of the U.S. Forest Service or whatever, or I'm here to do some kind of boring, insanely.
Is that scary? Like you're lying. You're like,
that's part of the training.
Oh my gosh. That would stress me out.
But our training is very good, and you spend about a year kind of practicing that.
Like sometimes I bring food back from Europe, and they're like, "Do you have anything to declare?"
And you're nervous about that.
Nope. I am so anxious. I can't even imagine being like going to a different country, being like, "Hey, I'm about to recruit agents to spy against you," and you're like, "No, I'm just here for cover."
So okay, let's go back to the whole process of joining the CIA. So in that kind of weeding out process. This is going to sound crazy when I say this, but they're almost looking for someone with some kind of traits of a sociopath. So you have to have this like incredible sense of confidence. You're operating alone all the time,
right? It's like some Catch Me If You Can shit almost.
So you're operating alone. You have to have you're going to make kind of life and death decisions by yourself. And so there's this kind of level of you don't need a type A person. I have this very kind of outgoing type A personality, but you can be introverted, but you have to have kind of an extreme sense of confidence. So that's the weeding out process. You're finding people who are okay with off to Africa somewhere alone. You get all the decisions.
If something goes wrong, figure it out.
Yep.
Crazy.
It's a lot of that. It's a lot of figure it out.
Is there personnel when like back to the recruitment process of joining the CIA? Is there personnel that are they looking for a personality type or a type of person, or are they looking for someone that's moldable or a little bit of both?
Great question. I think so I think probably both.
Yeah.
Because you obviously have to go through training and learn kind of these techniques, but they're definitely looking for personality types that can kind of operate on their own and with no supervision. Have the ability to make decisions and I think the last part is the street smarts part. I mean, you can't there's super smart people in the world, but they're gonna get, if you walk across the street right here on Canal Street, they're gonna get smacked and get hit hit by a car. Like you have to be able to operate on the streets. It's interesting. In a lot of our training, when we do the training in the United States, we get kind of thrown into various cities. On our own. They want to see how
oh really
how you can operate like that. It's a great training mechanism. New York City is fantastic.
Cities in the U.S.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's as part of the training. So think about it because it makes some sense,
right?
And this is not on the Upper East Side. this is going to be in a dangerous neighborhood. How are you going to navigate through this? Because ultimately, as a CIA officer, also in the street, you don't want to be in any kind of confrontations. You want to be able to talk your way out of situations.
Right.
But it's the idea of having those street smarts.
Yeah. Can I be completely honest
Yeah.
with you? I have a fantasy that I could be in the CIA.
You could.
I mean, could I?
I don't know. Well, you got to be under 35, and I'm not going to ask you about your drug use.
There's an age limit. Weirdly enough, I'm not like a huge drug guy. I like drugs as like I look like I sell drugs.
I'm not. I do the same. So when I go and talk to colleges all the time, this is my favorite thing. I'm like, they say, what do we have to do to join the CIA? And I said, all right, well, who here smokes pot right now? And no one raises their hand. I say, you're all fucking lying, first of all. Now, if you raise your hand, I would tell you just stop.
Right.
So, they'll give you about a year.
Right.
And so if you're serious about this, stop smoking weed now.
Right.
Now, if you're doing harder stuff, they're going to kind of frown on that a little bit.
So my heroin habit has to go
that's
out the
tough.
window.
But weed's okay.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah.
Because obviously I made it in. So
Yeah.
I actually had to sign something. They took me to a special room because they ask you these questions. They said, how many times you smoked weed? I was like, I don't know. And they said, well, surely not over 20. And I was like,
like 40.
And then so special
60,
room, special signature.
Yeah.
Which is why 26 years after that, the first thing I did was grab some gummies because I missed this shit. And then it turns out I can't handle it.
And then I guess the weeding out process. No pun intended. See, look at us, Mark. Let's go, baby. That process. The intro part is where they're weeding out people, but once you're at the farm, which is I guess the CIA training facility.
Yep, that's the secret facility no one's supposed to talk about, but I think everyone on the planet knows it's called that. So you said it, not me.
I'm part CIA.
Yeah,
that's
you are.
how I
There you
know.
go.
I'm actually doing counter ops on you. Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, I appreciate it.